Gonna get started. All right. Okay, good to go, good to go. Thank you, Sia, for helping me out with that. We are going to get started. This is the first annual Black in Data Week. I hope you all have been enjoying some of the presentations that you've seen so far. I know a lot of them, that last one today was really profound. I'm taking a lot of those gems and putting them into some of the work that I do in my day-to-day and even within what I do daily outside of work too. So today we're going to get started, and what we're going to talk about is how to visualize your data journey. So what does that mean? We'll talk about that in a second, but first let me introduce myself. My name is Teneika. A lot of you know me on Twitter as Teneika Ask You, and on LinkedIn as Teneika Ask You. And I've been in consulting. I was in consulting for 5 years. I just entered into the tech space this year. So right prior to when COVID started, I actually started interviewing after I put together a resume that you're going to see later today that showed what my journey was and put in some metrics that really wowed a lot of recruiters and hiring managers. I've also been in the nonprofit space for about 3.5 years. I still work with nonprofits daily just to help them understand how to get the most value from their data. And then I've worked on data science projects all throughout my 5 years. I started straight out of school working on data. When I was at Fayetteville State, I worked on a few different projects, and I ended up having a really big passion for databases and data analysis. So much so that once I got it to my first job, I started with doing some data analysis for Department of Navy and helping them get their systems in order, creating different roadmaps and prototype databases for them to understand how they could launch a larger data ecosystem or ERP system. And after that, I decided to get my MS in business analytics. So that was just a short snippet of my journey. But today you'll also learn how to identify a step-by-step guide to create a journey in data, how you'll leverage free training and resources. I post so many free training resources on Twitter. So if you're not following me, I would definitely recommend following me. I post these resources because I'm super passionate about individuals understanding what data is and how easily accessible a career in data can be. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the steps needed to visualize your LinkedIn journey. And we're going to do that with a few different tools. I started to use Tableau, but during my journey in building this tool for this presentation, I learned that Excel was really going to be the tool to help me do this data wrangling because Tableau prep was not powerful enough for me. Okay. So, all right. So let's talk about my journey. I posted an article recently where I talked about I really wanted to be an RN or a doctor because my mother told me about being a doctor. Did anyone else start their career thinking they wanted to be something else that wasn't completely tech related? Throw it in the chat. I want to see. What did you think that you were going to be when you first got out of high school? Law, a doctor, yes, sociologist, chemist. Blossom, not homeless. Honestly, I had a journey there. We can definitely talk about the homeless journey. I had a moment where I was like, what am I going to do once I leave school? I got into school. Okay. I also thought I was going to be a doctor, and I got in school and I did not like the anatomy of the body. It just wasn't interesting to me. It wasn't appealing. I was falling asleep in class because it was boring. So I just made a switch and I started doing some code after speaking with an instructor who basically told me that you can make an impact in the world by knowing technology. So I switched schools, went into comp sci, started doing comp sci, and I learned about Python through through the comp sci major, and it was really, really powerful. I was doing it like all day. I got really, really ingrained in it. I started stand up late coding, and then I eventually switched over into databases because I had a school project that I was doing, and I was really interested in how the data flowed. And that project, basically, I ended up speaking at conferences about it. I ended up speaking for the chancellor. So it really propelled me into wanting to know what data is, wanting to know how data fuels everything. Every app I was developing with Python and Java was fueled by some type of database. So I really got into the data side of it, and I kind of didn't look back. And then I basically graduated and started my career in consulting. And I had a really refined focus in data and systems engineering. So I worked with clients to make sure that they were able to see the value of a large data system. So, what can this data system do for you? Can you query it? Can you get the results back? How long is the querying time? Do you have enough data to put in the system? Is it data that's coming from older system, what we call legacy systems? Is that accurate? Is it clean? Should we be moving this data over? So I worked doing those type of functions for a long time. I would say a long time to me is like a year. When you're consulting, a year working on a project is a very long time, but I worked on that so much that I became known for that in my organization. And so after that, I started to wonder what visualizations could do because my client kept going to Accenture. I worked at Booz. My client kept going to Accenture, and I was like, hey, me, I'm here. So I could do that too. My client was like, but you never showed me that. You never showed me that you could do that. So I'm not going to come to you. So I was like, okay, well, I'll show you. And I basically started studying. I asked my manager for permission to take this cert, and he gave me permission. And so what we started doing was going through what certifications I needed. I started doing a business analytics certificate. I started studying SQL. I started basically understanding Tableau and SAP business intelligence. And then we started together basically creating data analysis and added that to my offerings, to the offerings of Booz. So my client didn't have to go outside of Booz to see data visualizations or see these analyses that he was presenting in meetings. So afterwards, I really, really refined on making sure that I understood um, from data visuals, the statistical analyses that went under it to do forecasting. And that was really, really tough for me. It was tough for me even when I was doing my business analytics certificate. It's tough for me now. I know I saw a lot of data science for all people in the chat. So going through that program is also reminding me how tough it was when I went through the Women's Summit. Just it is so powerful to understand Python. It's so powerful to understand how you can make a difference just by understanding forecast, just by understanding modeling. So I really went into that and I kept doing it until I was able to produce financial reports, and that became really hot. And I got a lot of certs for it. I got a lot of awards. I just became super credential in it to the point where I started to understand, me personally, in 2020, I started actually getting certifications then. Now, technically, the only certifications I had before were more managerial certs. So in 2020, I started getting certifications, but between 2015 and then, I had my experience. I had a very good portfolio of experience internally that showcased the work that I was doing. So does anyone in the chat have a portfolio, a project portfolio? I want to see, kind of gauge the room. Do you have if someone asked you to showcase some of your work, do you have some work to show them when you're asked in an interview? GitHub does count, Blossom. It is definitely a really good place to showcase a portfolio. So a lot of people don't have one, and that's okay. You can start literally today. I added this project to my portfolio in the past 2 weeks. So it doesn't take long. What do we do if we work with confidential company data? Yes, that happened to me. So I'll talk to you about some tools. One is called Makaru. I love Makaru because you can generate data. And what Makaru does is you put in what type of data you want, and it will generate fake data for you. So let's say you built a tool and you just need some data to ingest in that tool or dashboard or report, and you need that fake data so that you can use that externally. Go to Makaru, put in the field names, the field types, and giving them an example of what that data will look like. And basically, you will start. You can now take that data. Now, if it's proprietary, that's a whole nother story. If the whole thing is proprietary, but you can recreate your dashboard using fake data. So, all right. So, how do you journey into data? So, one, you need to learn the fundamental understanding and the concepts of data. So, if you have done simple data analyses in Excel, and when you're in Excel, can you look at a data set and answer key questions? I tell people all the time, think of a issue. So right now, like I was talking to my trainer and he was like, I just asked him, like, I wonder what's the correlation of how successful someone is and being fit and getting like super fit to how far your trainer lives from you. And he was like, there's actually a high correlation. There's a couple studies out there. And I was like, I wonder if there's like a dashboard. I couldn't find anything. So I was like, why not look that up? Why not find some data on that? Think about like key questions that are going on. Everyone is really visualizing COVID data. Data availability is big. So while I have to research that data, think about also when you think of these questions, what can you do to find the data? Is that data readily accessible or available? And we'll talk about analyzing your own data today. Like you can analyze data pull your Amazon data. That's free and readily accessible to you. Your Facebook data, that's free and readily accessible to you. So take the data that's available to you and showcase your understanding of concepts and theories by creating these projects that you can now put on your portfolio. And so even if you don't have a client related project or portfolio, you can add this to your portfolio, and it'll showcase that you either know a tool or you know a skill or both, you know theories, you know concepts, and you can show real life application. And then what the hiring managers want to see is, can you present the data? Can you showcase the data in a way that will help you understand it? And can you continue doing that over and over again? I just want to pause really quick, see if there's any other questions. Exactly, Raven. Adding your own data. Let me also throw this in. Everything we're talking about today, I also just wrote down in a blog post so you'll understand when it comes down to the visuals part. Okay. So what do we want to avoid? We don't want to try to learn multiple tools of language. Don't try to learn R and Python. Don't try to learn Tableau and Power BI at the same time. You will get confused learning multiple tools, and experience in those tools matter. Experience in those languages matter. Don't rely on certifications. Again, I had no certifications for 5 years before I became head of people analytics. 5 years, no certs. The person who interviewed with me, I was told this the other day. The person who interviewed made one mistake in her data analyses that really turned off the hiring manager. One mistake. Focus. Make sure you are focused when you're going to these interviews, when you're presenting. Make sure you're focused. Learn one thing at a time. Showcase that one skill at a time. Also, don't spend so much time on theory. Make sure you're applying what you learn. You learn about pivot tables, create a business case or a use case, a client. Understand, again, your Twitter data is there. Raven said she's using her Twitter data. Take your Twitter data. How many tweets are you producing in a year? You can easily understand that in pivot tables, right? Start small, build up. Now, can you ingest that data and clean it a little bit so that you can see How many tweets are you tweeting where it contains apprenticeships, jobs, free training? So make sure that you are applying that knowledge. You can start very small again in Excel, then move yourself up to a Tableau or Power BI or Click. Okay. When you also are trying to get into data, don't just jump in and try to do data science. Start with data analysis. A lot of people come and they say, how do I get into machine learning? I was like, okay, so what's the level of your Python experience? Do you know pandas? No. If you don't know pandas, how are you going to start doing machine learning? Don't start deep. You can't start with deep neural networks if you don't know how to cleanse data. Okay. Don't also have so many skills on your resume. If you have, I see a lot of resume skills sections that are flooded with technical skills. So, what is your expertise? You will notice that when you are looking at data jobs, they're not always looking for a generalist. They're looking for people with key skills: R, Python, R and Tableau, Python and Tableau, Python and Power BI, Python Click. They are looking for people who have skills in a language and skills in a application. Ideally, what they call the generalist, they may also have that SQL knowledge. That SQL knowledge tells someone who's looking at resumes that you know how to query data. You know how to get the data yourself. You don't have to rely on a data engineer. And make sure you're tailoring that resume for the role. So if you know the role is requiring R, SQL, SAS, or Tableau, whatever, don't have 80 different languages on your resume. The recruiter doesn't care. Don't put 50 languages on your resume, 50 different tools, a combination of all of that. If the role focuses on 3 different tools, it really shows that you aren't refined in that skill. You aren't practicing that skill. Okay. Make sure you're also learning how to communicate. So if you are building something, ask a coworker, ask a friend, can you have a session where you're basically presenting to practice communication? Can you present your story? Is it effective? The previous session that was today talked about that. Can you do that? Do you know what it takes to communicate effectively? Communicate to leaders, senior leaders. All right. And then we're talking about the good old project portfolio. This is where you show your expertise. This is where you show how long you've been studying, what skills you've built over time. This is really the point where a hiring manager will distinguish you between someone else. Okay. So if you're a newbie or a aspiring data analyst or even a data scientist, I get a lot of questions about where to start. Do I need to learn everything at once before applying for a job? What skills do I need to know now? If you are new in the field, you can't impress experienced hiring managers by adding so many skills in resumes. Beginners tend to fall into the trap of spending too much time on theory versus hands-on application, and a data career is an applied field. The best way to succeed is to solidify your skills, okay? So here's an example of a really good portfolio that I like. It shows public evidence of this person's skills. It shows public evidence that this person is capable of building complex models. It shows that they know Python. It shows that they know R. What it also tells me is that this person has been growing their skills over time. So as you learn more, start to add more to your portfolio. It will show growth. It also shows how effectively you communicate and present. In data, we as technologists are always challenged by that presentation factor. in consulting is ingrained in us to have executive presence, but in industry it's not. So how do you make sure that you're communicating effectively? Again, phone a friend, find friends in data. There are so many people in data. Look at how many people were presenting this week. Look at how many people are presenting or talking about it on Twitter. All of these individuals want to be in data. They want to help you get into data. Okay. So make sure when you're building your portfolio, you have a README, you have a description of what they're about to read and why, what the project is, what they're going to do, how they're going to run your code. Make sure the description is complete. And if you have like any external links you need, make sure they're shared. If you have any blogs that you're doing, make sure they're shared. Okay. So this is an example of how you can communicate your skills effectively without any other tool other than Excel and PowerPoint. I literally took what you saw earlier. It started here. This is a resume that I made once I said, I want to go to tech. I want to work in tech industry. I basically took all of the metrics that I report annually on in my annual reviews. And I said, hey, what are people saying about me? What are the kudos that I'm getting? What do I need to communicate to a hiring manager to reel them in? Hiring managers see those resumes with text on it all the time. So I made a more visual resume. I told them my path to where I am. This has been updated with Mozilla, but before it was Deloitte. So I told them how I exceed targets, how many awards I was receiving, what my performance ratings were. I told them what I was known for. Okay. I also gave them a resume driven approach that they might want to see. They might want to know, okay, that's nice, but what's the impact of your work? So I gave them that. I gave them some context to what I was building and what I was doing. I told them the impact of my work, and I showed them the skills that were used to deliver that work. And at the bottom, you'll see this literally was me understanding what did I do in the past 2 to 3 years. I took all of that data, I put it in Excel, and I did some sums and counts. Come on now, we can do sums and counts in Google Sheets. So I know you can do sums and counts in Excel. How can you communicate your story in a tool like PowerPoint? That'll help you exceed in a tool like Tableau, in a tool like Power BI. So taking this, you can build a portfolio as well. So I'm gonna walk you through the link I shared earlier as well. And I'll share it again, just in case anyone gets lost. I'm gonna walk you through what I did to build a portfolio in Tableau. And this is actually a project that I did in my portfolio. So the first project I did was actually a VC project that I did with the Data Science for All Women Summit. This is the second project for this training. All right. So I want to ask a question. How many people know what ad targeting is? Do you know what ad targeting is? Okay. So how do companies target you? What type of data do you think they have on you to target you? Cookies. What type of data for Facebook? Everything. Yes, we have everything. But what type of data? Activities, interests, engagement, what you're viewing, what you like. your age, your race, your clicks, location. Exactly. So I took what you can also do. I took the data that LinkedIn has on me and I said, I want to know how LinkedIn is selling me to recruiters. I want to know how recruiters are finding me on LinkedIn. I want to know what I look like from a recruiter lens. So I combined the data that LinkedIn uses to target recruiters and hiring managers and ads for me with my personal LinkedIn data with messages to create this story. So I'm going to walk through the steps I took to get to this dashboard, and I'm going to stop and pause because I want you all to understand how to get here as well. So the first thing that I did was go to LinkedIn. And let me pull this up for you. I went to LinkedIn and I asked LinkedIn to download my data. And here is the link to download your data. Now, the issue is LinkedIn wants you to request it. They don't want it to be immediately available. They want to know how many times you're downloading your data. So luckily with GDPR, all of these companies must make the data that they're selling to you publicly available to you. Okay? So when you go to LinkedIn, what you'll see is you need to click on, I sent you the link in the chat, but if you're not in the chat, you just need to click on your name and click on settings and privacy. All right. Now, this data is available to you at all times. If you need a larger data set, you do have to do a larger request. If you want something in particular, you just check it and click download. Depending on the request you choose, it depends on what data you're going to get immediately. So that's how you access your data. Anyone have any questions about how you access your data? Okay. I choose the largest one. So this is what the largest data looks like. It pulls every piece of data LinkedIn collects on you. Yeah, I can go back 1 second. So when we go to LinkedIn, you can choose to either download your larger data archive, or you can download specific things. I downloaded the largest archive. And I'll pop that link in real quick. All right. When you get the data, you'll notice that there's several tables of data available to you. All of these tables are the data that LinkedIn collects on you. What it looks like. So LinkedIn is understanding your age, what companies you've worked for, what are the size of those companies, what type of degrees do you have? They even classify your degrees. They even say if the company you work for is a negative growth company. Why is this important? When recruiters are doing their LinkedIn searches, that some recruiters who work in like startups, they might want to see, are you working at a business that's been scaled? Are you working at a business that's had positive revenues? They also have your fields of study, what type of work you're doing. And we'll talk about some other areas of the data. All right. So what I did next was cleanse and transform that data. So I opened the data in Excel, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. And basically, what I did was I took all of the tables and I had to pivot them because what happened was the data came up in a flat file. So I had to, in order for that data to be in columns, I had to change it from rows to columns. So I had to do a pivot. Let me show you what that looks like. So did anyone know in Excel, you have this nice tab, a flat file? When you first get your data, it looks like this. It was straight going across with semicolons. So it's delimited, one row of delimited data. All right. I took that data and I wrote a query. I went into get data. So once you open up anything in Excel, select it and click data, get data. And it's going to ask you for where, but if you click from table or range, if you select it and click from table or range, it's going to get the data that you selected. Okay. Since I already did this, I'm just going to give you an example of what this looks like. So I am pulling up in Power Query what this looks like. Give me a second. Was anyone able to actually get their data immediately? Okay, perfect. I figured that would happen. Yeah, it's so interesting how they monitor those requests for your own data. But okay. So what I did was the data came in a file similar to this. So I wrote a few functions. The first function that I did was to make sure that the data type of these fields were text. Right now it's text or number. This is all in Excel. I'm not using anything outside of Excel. So once I changed it to text, I removed all the columns that I didn't need. So this file has several columns. Again, they're looking at where you are, where you come from, what company you're working at, what fields of study you're in, what your graduation year is, what groups you're in, what are your interests. Did you know that LinkedIn also targets you, pushes you in a target? So LinkedIn has told recruiters and marketers that I am at director level. So all of this data was there. So because if I was to do a split, I removed any duplicate columns, and then I split the company name column. So I'm just going to show you what that is. This company name column right here, I split that column because as you can see, there are delimiters in here, and I need this data to show separately. Does anyone know why? Why I can't use this data in Tableau or Power BI as it is? If I was to do a count, what would show up? Yep, it would be 1. So it would be 1 because there is only 1 record right now. And that 1, if I ask for the value of it, would be this entire syntax, this entire value. So what I did was I split this column to give me the data in separate columns. So now it is split all of the data into 11 different columns for 11 different companies. I went and changed the type, and I specifically chose these columns, and I unpivoted the data. So now what's happening is in an unpivot, the data was one flat row. So when you unpivot data on particular columns, I'm saying I want all of the data from these columns, from these rows, this row, into a column. So it's going to change that data to be vertical and not horizontal. And how is that done? It takes all of the rest of the data that's in the file and it duplicates it. The reason is, scrolling over to the end, for each record, I need to know what other data exists in that file. So I need to know, even though I worked at IBM, I still need to know all the background details of Teneika. So when you're working with data and you're doing pivots, the pivot is going to take all of the rest of the data with you unless you remove those columns to begin with. All right. I learned about accessing and using LinkedIn data last week. I was trying to figure out literally what could I do or present during my presentation. And at first I went with, I could just do a basic PowerPoint deck. And I was like, that would be boring. And I started to think through, well, what would be interesting? What's some data that I've never touched before? And so I was looking around, browsing, perusing the web, and I was just like, this is all boring. So I was on LinkedIn posting, I've been doing a Scrum training for free, and I've been seeing everyone's post, and it's been really amazing. I'm so happy. I got like over 150 people have gotten Scrum certifications from my training already. And so I was like, I wonder how LinkedIn is tracking this. And I wonder how LinkedIn sells, like you get a certification, you add it to your profile. How does this get marketed? So I started to look through that data and wanted to understand basically what happens with that data. So that's how I got it last week, Blossom. All right. So basically I renamed these fields, and this is just data cleansing, removing all the other fields because I don't need them. And I trimmed and cleaned the text. Now, the issue with, I could have repeated this with all of my fields, but every time I unpivot this is 11 records, right? So this is 11 records. Now, when we look at LinkedIn collects job title information, right? So LinkedIn looks at what your job title is and what target job titles could be for you based on what you put in your LinkedIn profile. So if you put specific keywords in your LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn is going to generate job titles for recruiters to look for you for. That's why I tell people, I do a LinkedIn training. I'm like, please tailor your profile for the job you want to be. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Tailor your profile for that. Because now LinkedIn is using that data and they've come up with 40 job titles for me. Let me just make sure I'm getting back here where we were on the slides. All right. Okay. I have a little sensitive mouse. Sensitive. Okay. So LinkedIn has generated all of these job titles based on my profile. Now, I had 11 records and company name, and I had 40 records here. Take 40 times 11, that would have been 440 records. The reason is when I split and unpivot. Now what happened is all of the data for just the job titles has now become 40 records. Now 40 times 11, because there were 11 companies, that's going to generate 440 records. So this data set would start to get really large. Now look at locations. That's another 10. So 440 times another 10, that's 4,000. So what I did was I separated these out into separate columns. Because once I get to skills, look at how many skills LinkedIn has generated and I have added together, 502. So what we want to do there is make sure that we're separating the data out into separate columns. And I tried this, and I'll show you. I tried this in Tableau Prep. This is how it looked, and this query took 45 minutes to run. In Excel, in Power Query, this was literally 15 to 20 minutes. Now, I'm saying that to say that's how long it took me. It may not take you that long. It may take you longer. It's okay. You're not in a rush to get anything done. It's okay. Take your time, apply the skills, practice the skills. Practice the skills, apply the skills, okay? All right. So I did all of that data, all of those data transformations so that I can get to pulling the data into Tableau. Once I ingest the data in Tableau, I now have the ability to do data transformations. I now have the ability to do calculations. I can now talk about what I've done. I can now visualize. And visualization, Jaleisha, Tableau Prep is free for students. So if you still have your student email, let me tell you, get Tableau, keep renewing, get the Tableau accounts. Make sure you register and sign up every year. As long as you have access to that email address, get the freebies that are associated with it. Did anyone know that GitHub has a student account? You get access to Data Camp, which is $150 a year for free. All you need is a student. Yes, all you need is a student email address. You get free, there's free GitHub licenses, free Data Camp. The GitHub education pack is really critical to building your experiences. If you have that student email, leverage it. I use my student email for everything. Okay. Now, now that we know about the student email, there's so many other discounts you can do too. Yeah, let me post the link for that. All right, here's the Tableau student. And let's see, GitHub. Here is the Tableau. Here's the GitHub. Sign up. You get so many freebies. It's crazy. You get a free website. You get Canva. You get Azure. You get credits every month with Azure. Heroku. Let's see. I think you get a free website as well. It's like 50 or 60 discounts. Twilio. Oh my gosh. Let me go there. They've added a lot more. Look. All of these companies were not added when I was there. So during COVID, all of these companies have been added. A lot of cloud companies, so you can practice your cloud skills. See it? Data Camp, GitHub Campus. Listen, Look, Twilio, Popsicle, Data Dog. Oh my gosh. Y'all leverage the resources that's free. I'm telling you, stop paying for stuff. A lot of us are also hoarders. We sign up for stuff and we never use it. Don't do that, especially if you paying for it. I can't let you borrow my email because I'm actually using my email, and you're gonna mess up my algorithms for what progress I'm making on data camp. But all in all, look for and use what's free before you go out there paying. Look, AWS educate accounts. Okay. So let me go to this dashboard that I built. All right. So I'll do a demo for that, and then I'll go to questions. Let me move this over. All right. So if you have student loans, use your school email. I love that. All right. So if you ever need a quick project to do, try this out. It's something to show that you have skills. This can be done in Tableau or Power BI. All right. So simply, I built this dashboard to show what my story was. LinkedIn. This is all generated by LinkedIn. I combine LinkedIn data with my data. Okay. So LinkedIn is telling recruiters, is telling hiring managers, is telling at companies that are targeting specific groups that I have 9 years of experience, and I'm in human resources currently at a director level. I took this data from my personal LinkedIn data, not the data that's ad targeting, to see how many people have messaged me in the past 3 years. 1,600 people have messaged me. Now, if I want to know what they're talking about, that's over here. So the top areas, they want to know my experience. We're talking about my resume. We're talking about what interests I have, what businesses I'm in. They're congratulating me. They're talking about data and analytics. Okay. If you want to see, okay, so now I want to see what connections I have, right? So let's be targeted when we're looking for our next role. Now, if you go out here trying to get into data, you're trying to be strategic. This dashboard like this can help you figure out. One, I noticed that my network changed over time. So over the past year, my network grew drastically. The number of connection requests I had jumped almost 2.5 times between 2019 and 2020. What change happened there? For me, I know I started using Twitter. I started posting more publicly. I was at a consulting company, so I didn't want to be super public facing because I was in federal. I had a clearance. I just didn't want a lot of things out there. So, but I just started saying, I'm just going to start posting and sharing what I'm doing internally. And some of the people from Deloitte are on here. They know I used to share all these resources just within Deloitte and within the groups I was in there. But I started to say, let me share them out externally. And so this is the jump that I think that was the result of that impact. But if I actually wanted to see over time, in 2019, I had still a lot of connections from consulting industry, but it started to change. I had people from Mozilla. I had people from Microsoft, IBM, Google. When I started posting and sharing more resources, my network grew. Amazon, Apple, a lot of Google, LinkedIn. So more people from tech started to add me. I also noticed that as I started my career, of course, at first, yes, my company sponsored my clearance. When I started my career at first, I had people from Fayetteville State. Then I had people from the companies that I was interning in and a couple outliers. Here's when I started my career. And I noticed that At first, I had just 2013 people who were software engineers, founders, a small percentage of CEOs. Over time, my network grew, and the people who were in that network changed. Okay, so now the levels of people are changing. I started my career in 2015. Now I'm having more senior consultants and managers adding me. You can see that through this change here. When I started sharing more, there was a big difference in the individuals who were starting to request me. And so this is a great way to see who's in your network. And then also take that to, well, look, who is a senior consultant and what company are they from? They're at Deloitte. So now I need to figure out who at Deloitte I need to talk to if I wanted to go work for Deloitte, right? Oops. Here we go. Who's the founders? So none of the founders and the CEO, oops. None of the founders and the CEOs are in the top categories, right? But over time, more CEOs started requesting me. I noticed that too. Okay. These are also the highly suggested roles LinkedIn has suggested me for: consultant, software engineer, manager, project manager, president, president. That's cool. Data analyst, cybersecurity engineer. Interesting. IT project manager. All right. I just showed you what I'm being messaged around. So this is a really cool project to just take in an interview when they say, have you ever worked with a tool before? Yes. Yes, I work with a tool. Let me show you. Let me actually show you my LinkedIn growth. Let me show you how LinkedIn is targeting me. Let me show you how you probably found me on LinkedIn. That's something to say. What do you mean how I found you? Yeah, let me show you how your recruiters found me. So take that in. Start building your portfolio. Start showcasing. That's one thing that will help you stand out. Again, the difference between me getting a role and me not landing it, the person before me already had the HR experience. They were there. They landed the role. When they went to do their data analysis, they had errors. Mine was clean. It was clean cut. For the director, he previously worked with someone who had problems with QA, quality assurance, making sure that the data was clean. So that they didn't get it. Okay. All right. So let me go back to let me just make sure y'all were seeing my screen because I feel like I was presenting and y'all didn't see it. Okay. All right. Can you all see the dashboard? I just want to make sure. I think it was showing. I was doing all these great demos and I don't think y'all see it. Perfect. Okay. All right. Let me just 1 second. So I'm going to do this demo one more time while you all go ahead and start asking your questions in the chat because I was just talking away and nobody told me that they couldn't see my dashboard. So I did see some questions earlier. Let me scroll up. I answer the clearance. Yes. So basically what happens is a company will hire you for a role. When you go to get a clearance, that company has to get you approved by the agency. The agency is the entity that actually processes your clearance, and you have to be approved by that agency to get the clearance. And then the company is paying for that process to happen. Okay. All right. Making sure you can see my dashboard. Okay. Next question was, yep, DC has a lot of clearance level positions. Is it typical for a data analyst or a scientist to work in multiple industries? Yes. So if you have skill sets in a specific industry, make sure that you're showcasing those skills in that industry, because your domain expertise is something that another person may not have. Your domain expertise as a psychologist, so when someone is looking, for example, to hire someone in health data science, your expertise is going to be different. You are going to be the outstanding factor for that organization. Finding someone who can articulate why there's an issue with the data from a qualitative perspective is very hard, because a lot of data scientists don't always understand the domain. So finding someone with that niche experience is really good. All right.
Hi, Teneika. This is Sia. You have a question about whether Tableau or other visuals in Python are better for someone who has just finished up SQL training.
So it depends on what your goals are. So if your goal is to learn Python, I definitely suggest you learn how to do visuals in Python. The reason is Python visuals can be very powerful, but they're very much used by the data scientists or research papers. They're not used more so, they're not used a lot in a public interactive way, if that makes sense. So when someone is usually trying to ingest a lot of information, the visuals in Python have to be displayed or copied and pasted into a deck or some format. So understanding how to do those visuals is really, really key, but make sure that you can take those visuals into a platform where you can put all the data in one place. So for example, here, this data, you would show it in Python. It would literally be like the GitHub repository, how the data flow right under each other. It would have to be like that. Or you would have to basically create a custom script dashboard in like DS3 or some other language to showcase those. Okay. And real quick, this is the dashboard. I was talking about it, but I didn't realize you guys can see it. So this is where I was talking about my experience changing over time. I mean, my connections changing over time from 2019 to 2020. And basically I can see what companies have found me. And the difference in the past 2 years is that a lot more tech companies started to request me. So Google, Amazon, IBM, Mozilla, Microsoft. And I can also see over time, I started in 2013 on LinkedIn. Of course, everyone from my university and everyone, these are the titles. There. And then once I got, these are the requests over time. And I started to notice that my requests over time aligned with companies that I had talked to at one point and I was interested in, of course, because I'm reaching out. The titles have changed over time. And so you can leverage something like this to also reverse target. So if you're looking for a role in software engineering, find out, add a factor under here that tells you the names of the people. Who is a software engineer? Get your dashboard to filter down there. So now You can just filter out and see who's the software engineer, how long have you been connected, when did you connect. I started sharing my experience over time. Again, you can see what type of messages people are sending to you. Use stop words in Python to filter out common words like I, we, they, them, us, have, been, things like that. Okay. Or you could make those stop words a lower value, which is what I did to make a nice, pretty visual like this. All right. Okay. So how useful do you find visualization in Tableau versus creating some of the features or visuals in Python? I find that Tableau is a little bit more hands-on and useful just because I personally have utilized the tool to tell stories for different audiences, and people who have been the stakeholders of or the person's listening have used Tableau before or have seen Tableau before. And when I show them, if I take a Python visual, again, I have to put it in the deck or presentation format, or in the portfolio style that I showed you earlier today. I actually had no people analytics experience other than like what my firm initiatives were at Deloitte and what I volunteered to do at Booz. So I basically, in order for me to learn Tableau and Power BI, I volunteered to do some data analysis for recruiting teams when I was at Booz, and I really, really liked it. I really loved doing it. I also got invited to all the recruiting events. Like, who doesn't want to go to Texas, Cali, Florida, wherever these recruiting events and these conferences are for free? Like, I literally created the opportunities for me. I said I wanted to learn Power BI. I wanted to learn Tableau. Sis, you're struggling with Excel. Let me help you figure out the ROI on this conference by allowing me to do it for you. And you know what? In return, I got paid for flights, paid for food, and I had to build a dashboard, something I already wanted to do. So I learned how to learn what people analytics or people data was from doing things like that, volunteering. Sorry, it's like a fly or something. I'm an entrepreneur who does not have a data or STEM background, but I'm committed to leveraging data. Yes, definitely. I have actually a Calendly link, and it's going to show that it's booked out to January 17th, but feel free to add and or message me on LinkedIn and I'll send you the link. Okay. If you've never been in a consultant or a contractor before, really it is understanding how to communicate effectively. Executive presence is really, really key in consulting because you're presenting to clients day in and day out. And when you're presenting data, you have to have a very good QA or testing process, because if the data is wrong and you're communicating that and the client finds out, or you communicate a different story the following week, they will know and they will call you out on it. They will say they might have the deck in front of them. So make sure that if you are looking to get into consulting roles, practice your skills and showcase your skills. Consultants usually have a very high executive presence, and they're making sure that their presentations are solid. So if you also practice your skills and present, and whether it's you doing a presentation, ask people to come to it, ask people to hear you out, talking to people daily also helps you build up your communication skills too. Okay. Yeah, so Tableau actually has 20% off of their certifications right now. If you go to the Tableau website, you can get the certification for 20% off. They also have the Tableau Data Literacy Program. I posted these on Twitter, but the Data Literacy Program is like 5 courses you can take to learn how to apply data. There's also ESRI, which is GIS data, spatial data. That's a 6-week program that's free too. And Data Science for All, the bootcamp I'm in, is actually opening up their application soon. Visuals in Python can extend outside of Matplotlib and Seaborn, but yes, a lot of people do use those, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Those visuals look really good in Python, but a lot of times they don't look good and they're not interactive. So you need another tool. Oh, my dashboard is, so on the blog, I posted the link. Let me pull that back up. Give me a second. So let me tell you all what's really, really cool about Tableau. You can create dashboards and publish them for free. Okay. So look, this is all of the, I started this year creating more dashboard that I can make publicly available. So this is my profile. I only have 2 dashboards up here, but these 2 dashboards are super impactful. I presented these dashboards with a story to tell during a presentation. So these are the 2 dashboards that I have. And when a recruiter reaches out to me, on my LinkedIn profile, I actually have this featured so they can go straight to it. So they've usually, in the past couple of weeks, recruiters still reach out to me. They always talk about this. They're like, wow, I saw your dashboard was really awesome and amazing. I will also put that in the chat. But you can create these for free. Like your Tableau Public is free. I think. Thanks, Sia. Just follow me. Yes, just follow me on Twitter. I give free advice, free workshops all the time. If you are new to stats, learn how to do basic regression analyses in Python, and that will really help you start to expand your knowledge of basic regression analyses and forecasting are really, really 2 key skills that you can take away and learn through some of the free training on Free Code Camp. They have really, really good, really good Python regression analyses and forecasting trainings. Let's see. All right. I think I'm getting through the questions. I love Plotly. That is a really cool tool for Plotly. That's a really cool tool for doing visualizations. Another question was, how do you make sure the numbers and everything is correct and accurate? So when you do data analyses, you're getting the data from a system, or maybe it's a file. You need to know, this is why I say you need to learn how to start with Excel basic counts, right? So prime example, if I am working, and I'll go back to this screen. I'll do one really quick. So when I did this is 502 records. I'm going to close this. When I do basic Excel analyses, so I believe that was skills. This is going to take a bit to load. ESRI. Okay, let's see. 1 second. See it everywhere, just follow. All right, where's skills? Where's skills? There it is. Okay. So this is skills. How I definitely check my work is I basically copy and paste it and put it here. This is a prime example. I then know that I need to split this split this row into columns. So I just do a text to columns function. I know that the data is delimited with a semicolon. And I just go through and I copy it. And this is literally, everyone thinks data analysts do like mind-blowing work, and they do sometimes. But it's not not that mind-blowing. So I count everything. It says 502. It's the same number that was in the system. So that's literally how a lot of people should do QA, but they don't. Okay. All right. I think I got through all of the questions. Is there any additional questions?
Teneika, there
Yes.
is a question about how much your master's degree helped you in your career from Blossom.
My master's degree helped me to get into qualify for more executive level positions. There are really, I think, some very stringent, and I was talking about this on Twitter today, degree requirements on roles where you really don't need a degree. But I think that the master's just qualified me for roles that I was, if they took out that master's level requirement, I was still qualified for. So I was not willing to pay for a master's. So that's why I got my companies to pay for it. I'm not paying for something when I can do the work regardless. So I align myself when I moved from Booz to Deloitte. I made sure Booz can pay for my degree, and I made sure Deloitte can finish paying for it. All right. So let's see. How much did you? Yep. A lot of interviewers will definitely ask you for the assumptions that were made, because you can get to the same results different ways. You can also get to different results if your assumptions are different. So if one person has one assumption that doesn't align with yours, the recruiters or interviewers want to see, how did you get to this answer? How did you get to these results? And that, if you can articulate how you got to the answer and the assumptions that you made, they can help you understand where you may have went wrong, or where, oh, they didn't think about that. So if you can communicate effectively what you did during each stage of your analysis, that is also really a really good key trait to have, not only in consulting, but when talking to stakeholders or clients or customers, team members, leaders. The quality of, I actually think Microsoft just launched a lot of good resources for free this year on LinkedIn. I would definitely take advantage of them. Let me pull them up. LinkedIn. They're really, really good. It was 14 learning paths, I believe, 14 or 15. And they really show you, of course, how to use Power BI, or how to do data analysis in general. I was watching it the other day. They created a becoming a data analyst. This is the path. So if you're looking to become a data analyst, here it is. This is the track. You basically, let me see, share my screen. Basically, they're taking the steps to understanding data analytics, becoming data fluent, statistics in Excel, and then data visualization. And they do some essential training on Power BI and Tableau. If you are really interested in this, I would definitely just go through these trainings. A lot of these trainings, honestly, you all, you could do it with it planned in the background while you're testing your skills and knowledge. Sometimes it's good to just listen because you never know where you'll learn either. So listen and replay them. All right. I think, do we have any additional questions? I wanted to make sure I answered because a lot of people message me and they're always like, how do I get into this career? I actually have one more slide I can show you all. Okay. So here are some, wait, where is, Mastermind, Magnamind. If you want to learn machine learning, Magnamind Academy is a free 5-week boot camp for you to learn machine learning. Mastermind, he's amazing. I'm trying to remember what the link is. There it is. Once you get into data at a different level, like understanding Docker and everything, Aaron Brooks does really good free boot camps. Like literally, you log into Twitch, you watch and go along with him. He explains things at a very basic level. He's amazing. A lot of people have attended his boot camp. His name is Aaron Brooks. His academy is called Mastermind. I just posted the link. This is, there was another one. The data science program a lot of people were referring to is Data Science for All. This is a free 13-week boot camp training that basically gives you the skills to become a data scientist in 13 weeks, and you do several projects that you can put in your portfolio. Like basically every week you have a program, you have a project assignment that you can add to a GitHub and build out your GitHub within 13 weeks. Also get free training. You learn how to do real world projects and with a group, a smaller group. And then you also have the opportunity to learn and apply your knowledge and compete. So, oh, and they also have job opportunities that funnel through the pipeline as well. So they have very curated job opportunities that come into the program and companies that come speak. SaaS is now, I wouldn't say old school. If you do have SaaS experience, you're very much niche, but R is becoming really hot. So my take is definitely learn R before you learn SaaS. But if you want to learn SaaS for free, there is actually they do 30 days free. So I would not enroll until you legit are ready to do it. But then you get 50% off the exam if you do it. So up to you. Learn for free, get 50% off, close it out, cancel the account, whatever you need to do. A lot of these companies are doing free training. Google is also doing free data literacy training as well. I'm just throwing out all the resources. The Data Science for All bootcamp is for the Data Science for All program. Empowerment specifically is for underrepresented groups in general. The Women's Summit is for just women. The Women's Summit is also only 5 weeks, but you meet twice a week. So you're meeting Fridays and Saturdays. So I basically had 10 classes over 5 weeks, had to build my project over 5 weeks. We literally did it in 3 weeks. That dashboard that I showed you was built and we showcased it, and that's what we use to get into top 5. I'll show that again.
Teneika, there was a missed question about how you were able to get your visual resume to pass ATS.
I upload both. I already know about the ATS system. I'm not gonna play myself. Honestly, also when you say pass ATS, that's the assumption that I'm assuming that you mean I submitted for a resume. Recruiters come to me. Recruiters are looking at me on LinkedIn and they message me. So the only time I'm uploading my actual resume is when they've asked me to upload my resume. But if I apply for a role and I want to, I always upload the regular resume or whatever resume I've tailored for a role. I tell people, make sure you do that. And then you can upload your visual resume. But there's a section usually on job applications that says additional uploads or additional content. Really, I'm telling you guys, content is key. Talk about what you're reading, talk about what you're writing. I just want to end it with that. Talk about what you're reading, you're writing on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Companies will find you. Share your profiles, share your portfolios with people. If you're building a Tableau profile, remember Tableau Public is also free. Do that. So the recruiters will come to you once that you start to talk about. If you see your article, you got something from it, write a little quote, write what you got from it, say yes, share. I literally shared that yesterday, basically Scrum changed their guide. I shared the top 10 changes. So many people message me. I can see how many people came to my profile because the level I am in my company, how many people came to my profile because of something I've written. And like CEO, execs, managers, people from Microsoft, people from Amazon, Facebook, looked at my profile because I wrote that. They've been looking at my profile because I've been sharing everybody who got certifications. Companies, other organizations have came to me because they're like, you do training? Can you do training with me? Can you do training for this school? Can you do training for this organization? Share, write, share, read, write, share. Whatever you're doing, you think people don't want to know about it, but it's always good to just share a little knowledge with everybody else because you never know who you may be educating. All right. So that really concludes today. I am actually going to transition to the conclusion of my Scrum training. If you need anything, feel free to send me a note on LinkedIn, send me a note on Twitter, and I'll also respond back. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everyone. We have one more session today with, if you are signed up for that, we hope to see you there.